What's going on, guys? Just wanted to talk about Donaven McCulley, transfer receiver out of Indiana, stepping over here to the Maize and Blue. Couple thoughts, man. Just wanted to rehash and go through. He's got a story, man. Went to Indiana as a quarterback in 2021, ended up throwing 35 completions, 80 plus attempts, lost a handful of games, so kind of lost his job there. Starts making that transition. Fast forward, sophomore campaign, 2022, ends up catching 16 receptions, 169 yards, and a touchdown. So really gets his first taste at receiver, first full year, his sophomore season. It says, you know what, okay, I can do this. I can put up some stats. Fast forward to 2023, junior season. He sticks his whole leg in the water. Says, you know what, I'm going to take 48 receptions for 644 yards, 13.4 yards per reception, and 6 touchdowns. So he really gets a taste. And especially, let's keep in mind, too, in that later half part of the season, too, his final 5 games, 28 receptions, 420 yards, and 5 touchdowns. The first 7 games of that season, 20 receptions, 224 yards, and 1 touchdown. So he really caught fire a year and a half into playing receiver, right? It's feeling good, confident, executing, scoring touchdowns, catching go routes, catching hitches, doing what he does best. And then in comes Cignetti, right? Tom Allen leaves, no longer head coach of the program. Donaven McCulley actually enters the portal then to test the waters a little bit. Cignetti comes in, brings 75% of James Madison. Keep that in mind for later. And then Donaven McCulley ends up talking with Cignetti and them work it together. They said, hey, you know what? Let's bring you back. Donaven McCulley comes back for the 2024 season. Cignetti went on record saying, I thought I was going to lose him to Florida State. That's so that just goes to show you what kind of season Donaven McCulley was having. So then they come together. 24 season comes around. It's a different offense, right? You see a lot less of those hitches. 9 were completed. Those curl hitch routes. 9 were completed under Cignetti out of 232 receptions total. Donaven had 19 receptions on those hitch curl type routes for 48 receptions his junior year. So that was about 40% of his work. That kind of disappeared. In comes Elijah Surratt, receiver from James Madison, a guy that coach is familiar with, has a little bit more speed, a little bit more lateral quickness. He comes in, he's running 7.2 more percent in routes, 2.2% more post routes, and a lot more slant routes than Donaven McCulley did. And, you know, he got Curtis Rourke out of Ohio, and he got his play call, or he got his gunslinger, and he had his receivers around him all ready to go. And so Donaven McCulley, a guy that a year and a half into his receiver journey, catches fire, starts losing a little bit to these guys that are more established, have been in the James Madison program. He kind of gets put by the wayside. October 1st, enters the portal a week after he catches a touchdown versus Madison. Keep that in mind. Says, you know what? It's not going to work here. Ends that year with 2 receptions, 21 yards, and a touchdown. Interesting thing about Donaven is that 24 season, that first game, he gets a head-to-head collision in the field of play, ends up missing the rest of that game, the rest of the next game, and did not play in a full 4 games that year. Obviously, he left October 1st. To some surprise, too, scored a touchdown versus Maryland. A lot of people were like, whoa, what's going on? So he enters the portal October 1st. Technically could redshirt that 24 season. So he technically had 2 years if he wants. And then you just look, too, I mean, on tape, he's got great hands. There's some moments, I think, earlier in that beginning part of the season where he's jumping a little bit on catches. You want to see him kind of stay on the ground, stay sturdy. But he does a great job running these man routes, these hitch curl routes, which you do see with Chip Lindsey's offense. I mean, in North Carolina, 37 hitch curl type routes were completed out of their 230 plus receptions. So a lot of what Donovan's good at is going to stay around with Chip Lindsey coming in. You are going to want to see Donaven McCulley adapt and start running some more post routes, right? We're going to have to take the top off the defense, or if you're running a guy off, we're going to have to see some speed there. Lacks a little bit in the speed. And I think that's what Elijah Surratt got him with at Indiana. But, I mean, the size, and let's talk about the hands for a minute. In the field of play, in between the 20s, you're like, okay. But inside those 20-yard lines, when he gets into that red zone, he becomes a different kind of beast. I mean, you see it with the way he contorts his body, the way he makes catches. I mean, his hands go from good to really, really great in the red zone. His ability then to outsize guys, I think really could play well in Michigan's favor. You're losing Colston Loveland, a guy in the red zone that you had a lot of success with, that you don't have a lot of size at the receiver position. So enter Donaven McCulley, a guy that's raw at the position, but keep in mind, I mean, he's got a full 2 years at the receiver position. I mean, you get him some good coaching, you get him some good schemes, and Chip Lindsey, a guy that can get receivers open, as we've seen at North Carolina. I think the ability to get Donaven McCulley going is going to be a big part. I think what we want to see from Donaven is the run after catch. I think if we can get him in the middle of the field, if we can get some of those post routes where he's crossing the defense, trying to circle the defense on some of these dig routes, and some of these routes that are on the move, if we can get him to learn and really master beating that man coverage, getting that inside release, being sharp on your cuts, he's got good breaks. Let's work on the cuts here. I think this kid could be really special for the Maize and Blue, and it'll be interesting to see, too. I mean, look at the number. He's wearing number 1, so we'll see what happens there. We all know the number 1 is highly special at the University of Michigan, but I think Michigan's getting a great prospect here, raw at the position, but I think the ceiling's very high.